on the Menard Studio Hotline. The host of the Sedano Show, again, follows us weeknights at 6 here on ESPN Evansville 105.3, the one, the only George Sedano. George, thanks for the time. We appreciate it. Let's talk some NBA, which is the plan here today. I want to start with this Russell Westbrook situation. He puts up his 54 points last night. He gets the technical, and it's rescinded today. What's your take on how that all went down?
I was with Kevin Durant, where he called it, well, I won't say what he called it because we'll all get fired and fined, but I'll just say it was BS. Let's just use the initials. I guess we could use those. They're fine. I didn't think it was the right call. I thought it was a little silly. I'm glad that was the case, that it was rescinded, because now we could kind of see how this thing works itself out with whatever's left of the best players on these particular teams in Oklahoma City and New Orleans.
How does that work? Does somebody view every technical called, or is it if you appeal it, or how does it work where it gets to where somebody looks at it again?
I'm not sure. I do know there's an appeal process, so I definitely know when it's appealed, they can review it. Do they review every single one? I don't think so, but that's just a guess on my part. But yeah, certainly Oklahoma City had a lot of reasons to appeal that particular technical foul.
Jorge Sedano from the Sedano Show joining us here on the Menard Studio Hotlines. Ford and O'Brien, ESPN Evansville 105.3, and online, ESPNEvansville.com. Does Russell Westbrook have a shot at maybe an MVP, or is it Steph Curry's to lose?
Yeah, I think it's Steph Curry's to lose, though I wouldn't be surprised if James Harden won it, because let's face it, I mean, last week they were a 2 seed, and he's done it without Dwight Howard for most of the season, and I know now they're the 6, but good God, man, the Western Conference is a bloodbath. You lose a game or two, and you can go from 2 to 6 pretty easily, so the actual seeding doesn't really factor in my opinion, at least, with James Harden, but I look at Steph and I say best player, best team, broke his own three-point record this particular season. He now holds 3 of the top 5 single-season best three-point seasons in the NBA's history. He was the leading vote getter in the All-Star game. Not that necessarily factors in, but it goes to show you that he is one of the faces, if not, well, maybe not the face of the league. I think that's still LeBron. But he's definitely in that conversation. So these awards tend to be a beauty contest and a little bit of a lifetime achievement award. And I know he hasn't been in the league all that long, but he's been really impactful the last couple of years, and I think he's certainly deserving. So I would say Russ is probably like third-place guy. I think he competes with LeBron or Anthony Davis for third place.
Let's talk about the playoffs, because they'll get underway here later on, actually, this weekend, as we've got the final week of the regular season wrapping up, and what feels like the NBA season it goes on for so long, it feels like. But let's start in the East. We sit here, the southern part of Indiana, so obviously some Pacers fans and Pacers country in this part. They're a team that still has – how much of a chance do you give them to steal that 8th playoff spot?
Oh, I actually have the exact numbers. If you give me a second, I can actually find it. It's in my email somewhere if I look for it. Oh, you know what? It's in my work email, and I don't have that available on my phone.
That's all right.
But the percentages are not great, let's just say. I know that Miami had the least I think they had the smallest margin. It was like 2% or something. But Indiana's wasn't great. It was below 20%. I want to say that's just a guess, but it doesn't look great. It looks like Boston, and it looks like Brooklyn will probably hold this thing off. At least that's what the different forecasts say. So I don't give them a much of a chance. But if they did get in, I could see them really giving Atlanta a hard time for this reason. Atlanta is a terrible rebounding team, as good as they are this season. And Paul Millsap is dealing with a shoulder injury right now. They may try to get him some run here just to kind of test it out. Shoulder injuries can be really iffy. He's one of their few big men. And Indiana is a team that, they're not the best offensive team. They're at times really offensively challenged. But what they do well is offensive rebound between West and Hibbert, and they can cause all sorts of problems and just play volleyball up there and get the offensive rebound and put the ball in the basket again. So I could see if Indiana were to sneak in, I'd like their chances not to beat Atlanta, but certainly push them, kind of the reverse of what we saw last season.
Well, we've got another Indiana name laying around out there in Brad Stevens, head coach for the Boston Celtics. He led Butler right up the road from us to the Final Four a couple of times, and he went into Boston. They weren't that good. Now they're going to make the playoffs, And with Isaiah Thomas and some bigs running around for Boston, they could give some people some trouble, don't you think?
They're going to play Cleveland, man. They're going to get stumped.
Come on, I'm trying to make it look good. We're in Indiana, man.
Yeah, they could, if they play Cleveland, which is, I think, with the way this thing might pan out, they're going to get stumped. And here's the other thing. I think Brad Stevens has done a fantastic job because there is no way you could have convinced me before the season that Boston was going to be in the postseason. I would have laughed you off the radio, okay, if you would have told me that was what you thought was going to happen before the season started. That team is not very good. It goes to show you how good he is and how bad the Eastern Conference is, too.
Yeah.
I think that Brad Stevens has a really bright future in this league. I think it's very difficult for a college coach to come in there and command the respect of his team. And to be honest, you may never command the respect of your team because, guys in that sport, man, it's a players' league. And there are few and far between the coaches that get ultimate respect. Even a guy like Rick Carlisle, speaking of Indiana ties, he had his little run-in with Rajon Rondo this season, and I would say Carlisle's a top-5 coach in this league. So it's a constant battle. But I'm just really amazed at what that team's been able to accomplish this year because there is not a lot of talent on that roster.
Jorge Sedano from the Sedano Show joining us on Ford and O'Brien. It's ESPN Evansville 105.3 online, ESPNEvansville.com. One more question for you on the East, and then I know you don't have a ton of time. We'll jump over to the West real quick here in a second. Why does it feel like nobody's giving Atlanta a chance to come out of that conference and play for an NBA championship?
See, I think they can if they're healthy. I think the Cephalosha injury hurts them a little bit against Cleveland specifically because DeMarre Carroll will get the prime assignment against LeBron, and he's been really good this year. But not having Cephalosha and having that secondary guy that can help you with LeBron could be a problem. Cephalosha has obviously played against LeBron a number of times over his career, and you're never going to stop LeBron, but you need to make him work. And I think that the combination of those two guys had done pretty well, at least in the regular season. And again, LeBron puts up big numbers against anyone, but it's about how much exertion he has to go throughout these particular games. How much, how much can you make him work? And Atlanta specifically, I liked if they were healthy because Mike Budenholzer he's a Popovich disciple. He's been on that team, or he was on that team for many, many years. And that's the team that always gives LeBron the most trouble, the Spurs, obviously. And look, there's no riddle to figure out LeBron because he's the best player on the planet, but they make him work and they make him do things. And that team in Cleveland, I think, still is vulnerable defensively. And against the right team, moving the ball the right way, like an Atlanta, like a San Antonio, like a Golden State, I think could potentially give them problems in a 7-game series because I'm not sold on their defense on the perimeter outside of LeBron. So, yeah, I like them, Atlanta, if they're healthy. But you're right. Most people aren't buying them because they think that they're the Josh Smith, Joe Johnson Hawks that were consummate 4 and 5 seeds and that were getting bounced, in the first or second round. So, yeah, it's just a historical play is there. Like, that's what it is. People don't buy it because they've never seen you do it. And I just don't know if that makes a lot of sense in this league. But I guess we'll wait and see. But to me, the key is, in Atlanta's case, can Paul Millsap be healthy? Because he's dealing with a shoulder injury, and I don't know how that's going to factor into the equation. If he's healthy, I like their chances. If not, they may have some trouble even getting out of the second round, to be quite honest with you. And by the way, guys, I got plenty of time. Whatever you guys need, I'm here.
Okay, great.
Well, then we'll move to the Western Conference, and we'll just go a little bit longer. You talked about the Spurs. That's a team, regardless of what they do early in the year, even the middle of the season, even a couple of weeks or even a month after the All-Star break, we don't worry about them because they're always there when it comes April, and here they come. And, they're a second seed right now. They've won, I think, 11 in a row. And this is the epitome of the word team. You hear all the big-name individuals on some other teams, but this San Antonio team, they're in a small market. They've got players that play very well together, obviously. But does that say something about the league, regardless of how many LeBron James, Russell Westbrooks, and all that you want to throw out there, that team still wins games?
I'm with you. Yes, I think that team basketball, it's why I like Atlanta if they're healthy, because I do think team basketball works. We saw the Dallas Mavericks do it. against the Miami Heat. Now, granted, they had a Hall of Famer in Dirk Nowitzki and a guy who ended up later becoming the Defensive Player of the Year in Tyson Chandler when he was with the Knicks. But they were a team. Jason Kidd moving the ball around, getting three-point shots. That's how they beat Miami the first year. A Miami team who, granted, with LeBron and Wade and Bosh, we're still trying to figure it out on the fly, but defensively they were pretty stout that year, even that first year. And they won. You go back further. The Pistons beating the Lakers, back in 2004. The Spurs, to be honest, they don't have, like you said, a LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, or Chris Bosh. Those three guys in Miami were more talented than the three guys in San Antonio the last couple of years. But the team won the games. And what you've seen is San Antonio has those three Hall of Famers. They've got Ginobili, Parker, and Tim Duncan. And they're all really good still at times. Parker specifically is excellent still. But Kawhi Leonard is the guy who's the best player on that team right now. And he epitomizes what Popovich wants with his guys. He never, ever changes his expression. He's never high, never low. He just dunks the ball in your face. He'll shoot a three-pointer in your face, and he will defend anyone as good as anybody in this league and never says a word. I wouldn't even know what he sounds like. And I covered 2 finals with him in it, okay? So that goes to show you that, yes, I believe in team basketball. I think that stuff works. Now, look, can Cleveland and LeBron disprove that theory? Maybe. I think they're a pretty good team, too. They've certainly been better since the trades for J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert and Mozgov. But we'll see. I think they're vulnerable, personally, depending on the matchup they get. But, yeah, I'm with you. Team basketball, I think, is the route that we're headed.
Well, with that being said, can the Spurs, can they come out of the West? They'll have to go through Golden State, of course. Or can they get past Golden State and represent the West in the finals?
Oh, they can absolutely beat them. I don't know if they will, and vice versa. I look at that series as a coin flip, and I know everyone puts all this stock into, well, Golden State hasn't won in San Antonio since 1987, and I'm like, well, I mean, last time I checked, there's a lot of different teams that played there in San Antonio. Steph Curry might not even have been alive now that I think about it. Maybe he was, but it's that stuff doesn't factor into me. But I look at it and I say, you have the San Antonio Spurs who've got the championship medal, and you've got a team that has been the best team in this league in Golden State, wire to wire. Best on offense, best on defense. And we haven't had a team like that since, I believe, the 96 Bulls. So that's a pretty good company to keep. So I think that you're looking at potentially the best Western Conference Finals we've seen, and we've seen some great ones in a long, long time, if and when those two teams meet. So I'm kind of rooting for San Antonio to stay in the 2 spot.
Well, let's one more for you, because you mentioned the Bulls, and I wanted to get your thoughts on Derrick Rose and how he's played here since coming back from this most recent surgery, and how do you like their chances in the East?
I'm if they were a stock, I would say I'd be selling them a little bit. Pau Gasol has been unbelievable this season. I just think the Bulls have had really bad luck, and there are a number of things on the horizon for them. It looks like Tibbs and management have officially not seen eye to eye, and there's already rumors that he's going to Orlando. That's never good. You don't want that headed into the playoffs. Derek, even when he came back here the last couple nights, has shown some flashes, but you need more than just flashes, I think, in the playoffs. There was a time right before he got hurt again that I said to myself, you know what? He's starting to look like the Derrick Rose of old again. Maybe not exactly the MVP guy, but he was starting to get there. And the reason I noticed that was because the last couple of games before he got hurt, specifically I think the last game before he got hurt, he was getting to the line more than he was shooting threes. Derrick Rose isn't a good three-point shooter, but it's hard to get into the paint in that league. You take a beating, especially as a small guy. So I think that because he's limited to being a guy that gives you flashes, I also think that Noah is dealing with that knee injury still. I don't think he's the same guy that we saw last year. He's not as menacing, even though he's fantastic. Jimmy Butler has been great for them, but I just think that their defense isn't what it used to be, and they've just got too many pieces that are not right from a health perspective.
So are you confident enough to make your pick for who you think goes to the finals on both conferences?
Not really. I mean, the Final Four, I got Atlanta, Cleveland, and I got San Antonio, Golden State. You can flip a coin, I think, with all those.
Right.
I think some people think Chicago can break into that conference finals in the East, and maybe they can, but I don't see them getting past the second round. So, yeah, I mean, that would be my Final Four. I'm also terrible at actual predictions. So with my luck, I'll pick like Cleveland and Golden State, and it'll be like Atlanta, San Antonio. So, you know.
I'm the same way. I didn't. There was one game, or it was during the NCAA tournament. Everything I picked was completely wrong as to who I thought was going to. It just was.
Yeah, well,
you can't do it.
The NCAA tournament stinks because you start trying to get because you always hear this stuff about, well, the 12 always beats the 5, and you get all gimmicky on it, and then you end up messing up your whole bracket.
And then you end up with the same powerhouse teams in the Final Four every year anyway. So what's it matter at the end of the day, quite frankly?
Right.
So,
exactly.
Now, I know you filled in for Colin earlier today, so when we're done here at 6 o'clock our time, who do I need to tell people are coming up after us?
Oh, that's a great. Oh, Ian Fitzsimmons.
Okay.
He works for us at ESPN Dallas. I believe he's in for me.
Okay.
Tonight and tomorrow, actually, and you know what? He might be in the whole week because I'm going on vacation after tomorrow. I got to go to a wedding, so I'm going to be out of town for a while.
All right. It's George Sedano normally follows us after at 6 o'clock on the Sedano Show. Appreciate the time, George. Had a great time, and enjoy your vacation.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Have a great night and enjoyed the time with you guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, George.